Hi, my name is Soile, and you're listening to Heart to Heartland, a fan podcast from a fan perspective. Welcome to the podcast. And as we did last week, we continue to review season 18 episodes. In this episode, we cover episode 8. So if you haven't seen that, spoilers ahead. Heartland Lisa BFC said, "Not gonna lie, this episode did nothing for me. It was more predictable than a Hallmark Christmas movie and just felt like it was an in-between episode to move things on in the next one, bringing the gap between Heartland beef and prize beef, which then gives opportunity for Nathan and Amy's budding romance to move forward. I guess it was good to see more lines and story involving Lindy, but her disappearance was the most predictable on where she had gone and who was going to find her. Hoping Logan going on the circuit means we finally see the back of that character too. For me, this season, the episodes have been better when there is no Logan and no Caleb." Yeah, I've been trying to think what to say about this episode. I mean, I definitely understand why this episode needed to happen because, like Lisa said, there were some things that needed to happen or needed to be expressed before we move to the final phase of this season, I feel like. But at the same time, it felt kind of flat. I know it started off like, oh my gosh, Lindy's gone. But I'm trying to think if the beginning of Lindy being gone actually hurt the rest of the episode or if it brought any value to what happened later on. Because like Lisa said, I feel like it was like very predictable as you watch the episode what would happen with Lindy. So would that have felt different if we had not seen the first scene of the episode? I don't know, but I think everyone acted well. I think the direction was good. I really enjoyed Lindy and Nathan scenes, and there were a couple of other scenes I also enjoyed, but mostly I just felt kind of like, okay, like that was an episode. I don't know how to feel about the episode. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it was necessary, but I wouldn't call it my favorite episode of the season. I was also really looking forward to seeing Shane back, but for some reason it felt kind of flat as well. And I don't really know why, because I know these are talented actors and they have chemistry together, but something was just off. I don't know if it was the script or what, but well, not my favorite episode. I guess that's where I can leave that. Then No Context Heartland said, "I think that this episode and Lindy disappearing was a good wake-up call for everyone, Lou in particular, about the beef wars getting in the way of what's important. I love getting to see Lindy and Nathan bonding further. It makes me so hopeful for the future. I was so happy to see Shane again and get a brief update on what's happening in his life, and I love that Tim gave him advice from the perspective of a parent who missed a lot. I'm also glad that Katie's actions had consequences and she isn't magically going to get back into that writing class. All in all, a decent episode, but largely a filler one." I really love the Lindy and Nathan scenes, and I think for those scenes alone, I was happy with this episode. I think Spencer Lord and the twins played off well together, and I think, like No Context Heartland said, it was good to see everything from a child's perspective because this has gotten so messy, and I hope that it'll make them stop for a minute and think about what has happened. I do feel like this episode, maybe this season, should have this tagline of family first or something like that. I felt like, in a way, we've seen Tim give that speech he gave to Shane many times. Not to Shane, but for others. And I understand why it was important for Shane to hear that and get the other perspectives as well. But for me, as an audience member who has seen all the 18 seasons, it feels kind of like, okay, we've seen that. But at the same time, I understand why Tim wanted to give that speech. And I feel like maybe that will be even more relevant later on, especially considering his job in Dallas. So I did enjoy scenes with Shane and Tim, but also it felt kind of like, okay, well, it's kind of the theme of the show, the season, and especially this episode. So for me, it was kind of like, okay, I get it already, but I understand as a character, Shane needed to hear that. Then HL Horses said, "This episode was fine, nothing special. You can tell it was a filler, like Heartland Lisa BFC said. I will say, when I saw the first look, I was surprised they were starting off the episode with a flash forward. Reminded me of season 10 premiere. I did like seeing the farmer's market, as it's something we haven't seen before. I laughed when the mascot from season 16 was there. It was also nice to see Shane. Jack teasing Tim about his hat through the whole episode was funny too. I also liked Lou and Nathan's little back and forth at the farmer's market, as what they both said was pretty clever. My favorite part of the episode were definitely the Lindy and Nathan scenes. They were so cute. Very predictable where Lindy ended up being and who was going to find her, but the scene was cute. Glad to see Nathan and Lindy bonding more, as Lindy liking Nathan is very important. It was so random of Shane just fainting, as I was not expecting that. Makes sense once we figure out why, but still wasn't expecting to see him just laying there. Tim's reaction to pregnancy announcement was so wholesome. I thought the arguments in this episode were very well acted. Tim and Jack, and then Lou and Amy. However, I was surprised Amy apologized later to Lou, as I don't think Amy was wrong in what she said. Glad Lou owed up to it as well, but I do feel bad for her. Both showed maturity I'm not used to seeing in Heartland. Usually just more yelling. I also really like Amy defending Nathan, and then that ending scene was cute too. Gives me even more hope for them. We just have to suffer through Caleb these next 2 episodes. Glad they are talking about ending the feud, and we know that conversation will be happening in the fishing trip next episode. Katie's storyline didn't really come much as a surprise. Glad she and Jasmine patched things up, and glad Katie is seeing her choices have consequences. I'll be interested to see where this moving to Vancouver thing goes. Glad they are showing Katie acting like a teenager, because I feel a lot of the time they write her very mature. Logan's storyline did nothing for me, but I did like Riley. Glad Logan is going on the circuit just because his character is getting on my nerves. I think being on the circuit will mature him a bit. It did seem he came to some realization in the episode about how he's been acting. As far as Tim's storyline, I'm glad they mentioned that he talked to Jessica, but I hope he takes his own advice he gave to Shane to put family first, because his plan of lying back and forth is just not realistic. I actually am surprised they already had him get the job. Thought it was going to be dragged out through the last few episodes. I also really like the Tim and Shane scene at the farmer's market. A few general thoughts. I always forget Lindy's last name is Borden until they mention it maybe one time in a season. Also, I can't believe Tim just took that guy's burger. I know that's a thing in TV shows and movies, but in real life, that would never happen. Also, this is nothing new, but I feel like Heartland has their own timeline mixed up. Lindy is in a tank top and shorts, but it's definitely supposed to be fall. Season 17 ended late summer, early fall, and it's definitely been more than a month in the show since the end of season 17. So Lindy should not be in shorts. I know they're filming in the summer, so they can't really dress for fall, but still. Also, in episode 5, Nathan said last year when mentioning Caleb in Amy's motel room, when it definitely was only a few weeks to a month ago in the Heartland universe. But what did I expect when they decided to change the normal timeline on us? Can't believe we only have 2 episodes left. I wasn't really interested in the Logan storyline either. But I agree, Riley's actor did a great job. And I think, in a way, his story is relatable probably to a lot of people right now. And I'm happy that it helped Logan, but I feel like Logan's been kind of on the side this season. I feel like he's only been used whenever there's something else going on besides horror storylines. So they've been kind of using him for those. And while I do enjoy seeing the horror storylines, I'm also kind of like, well, I guess I could do without them if I would be served something else that is very significant to the storyline. I know the story takes place mostly at the ranch, but at the same time, even though you're a horse person, sometimes there's other things in life as well. So if there has to be kind of horseless episodes, I would be fine with that as long as the story they are telling otherwise is good. I guess this might be the last time we will see Logan for a while. I feel like going off to the circuit, it either means that he's written out of the show completely, or maybe he comes to visit later on. But by the look of what Drew is doing, touring a lot, I feel like he might have other goals in life than Heartland, but we'll see. I don't really know how to feel about the character. On some level, I feel for him, and I think Drew has done a good job with what he has been given. But at the same time, I guess his character is just not for me. Maybe someone out there feels like it's for them. And if that's the case, I would like to hear it. But I feel like a lot of people have not been that excited about his scenes this season. So maybe seeing him go is not a big loss. And I feel a little bit bad for saying that, but I feel like with short seasons like this one, they really should focus on the things that matter the most. But like I said, I feel like Logan was mostly used whenever they needed a horror storyline that they can't really link to other characters. Then Sharon said, Katie has blinders on regarding her actions. She doesn't really see the position she put Jasmine in, and again, her attitude towards Lou. If she goes to Vancouver, what happens when Peter goes on his business trips? Does she think that Peter and Lou would be okay with her living on her own in the city where she doesn't know anyone? She is like most teenagers, impatiently wanting to be older. Remember, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. She doesn't have a license, yet rides her bike into Hudson illegally. Again, not thinking of her actions. So Logan thought he was going to have a lot of clients as his clinic after one article in the paper. Amazing how he doesn't listen to Amy, but after husband one person, hopefully he has learned his lesson, especially after his attitude towards Miley and Amy. Could be the last we see of Logan, which, in my opinion, isn't a big deal. His storyline this season has been tiresome. I think his character has run its course. I see Tim still doesn't know where the supermarket is. Did Tim actually see the size of the guy he took the burger from? So did Tim miss all three kids' firsts? Possible if he was competing at rodeos every week. He did give good advice to Shane, and I bet he will take his own advice. Lindy walking off after seeing Jack and Tim arguing. Sorry, but Amy was wrong in blaming Lou, but then again, she was only ever going to blame Lou, never Jack and Tim. I wonder if they took some responsibility for Lindy. We know that it was an accident by Lou regarding Crown, but Nathan deliberately setting up a stall giving out free food was deliberate. Both parties were in the wrong. Amy was obviously worried about Lindy, but she rushes up to Nathan saying it wasn't his fault, meaning she's still blaming Lou. Both parties are at fault, but it's easier to blame Lou. On a lighter note, I wonder if in true Heartland fashion, if Chloe makes it to the hospital to have the baby? Can't believe there's only 2 episodes left. And then she adds, forgot to say that Jack extending an olive branch to Nathan is the first step towards communication between the two families, which we'll see in the next episode. Nathan is very tender towards Lindy, love them on the swing together. Next time, Amy will join them. Yeah, it's interesting the speech Katie gave to Jasmine, explaining how she often feels like an older soul whenever she's among her peers. And while that's true, she also shows a lot of signs of being an immature teen. And don't get me wrong, I like Katie's character, but it's also pretty ironic that she did a lot of things that were not very mature of her. But I am glad that she was able to talk to Jasmine and deal with things, even though the end result wasn't to her liking. But I feel like it was necessary for at least try, because she did put Jasmine in a very difficult position and she knew what she was doing, so it wasn't an accident. And I feel like her being grounded and all that was fair, but I do wonder where this will go with Lou, especially because right now I feel like a lot of bullets have hit Lou from all the directions, and even though some see her as a villain, from a storytelling point, I think she's considered a hero, an anti-hero, I don't know. But I feel like in true Heartland fashion, she needs to have a win at the end of the season. So I feel like not only with Amy and Nathan and all the beef wars, I don't really know how that will go, even though I'm pretty sure that there will be some kind of happy ending there, but I don't know how they'll reach that. But I feel like when it comes to Katie, she needs a win, and maybe that's at least half a win for her this season after everything that she's been through, because either she lets Katie go to Vancouver, then it's kind of like Katie's win, not her win in a way. Or she's able to convince Jasmine to let Katie back into the group, which in a way might win Katie over when it comes to how things are with Lou and all that. And in a way, at least Katie has already tried, so it isn't completely on Lou to kind of arrange that if that is to happen. Whatever we're gonna see with Katie, that might be a bigger personal win for her rather than what's going to happen with Heartland Beef and the Beef Wars. And can anyone remind me, because I haven't watched season 17 since it aired, and I've only watched season 18 episodes once, but do we really know how Tim feels about Nathan? I know he sees him as an enemy through the business, but as a person, I feel like I kept expecting more of a reaction in the previous episode, episode 7, when Amy confessed that she has feelings toward Nathan, and Tim kind of goes, I had a feeling. But it wasn't really more than that. So the reason why I'm really asking is because I feel like they're really building the relationship between Jack and Nathan, and I know it makes sense, but if we view this from sort of Amy's perspective, Tim never kind of comes first when it comes to her guys and the bonding experience. It's always through Jack first, I feel like, whether that's a good thing or not. But it is just interesting that Jack often is more of the father figure to Amy than Tim, even though Tim has definitely stepped up and Amy does recognize him as her father. Let me know if there's like something specific Tim has said about Nathan. I feel like right now it's only sort of the business side of things that he feels toward him, but maybe I'm forgetting something. So next up, we're gonna have the penultimate episode of the season, episode 9, Leave No Trace. If you're listening this on Saturday, it will stream on CBC Gem tomorrow and air next week on CBC TV. The synopsis says, Jack and Tim try to mend fences with Nathan on a fishing trip. Amy and Caleb save a horse in distress while Lou finds herself in a dangerous situation. The preview looked really interesting. So if you haven't seen that and you're watching or listening this from YouTube, I will always include that in the description box below. And I can't wait to talk with you again next week. So until then, keep your noses clean and your powder dry, as they say. Bye.